Hey, you. Glad you're here. We are here to awaken the women we once were through radical personal responsibility, unapologetic truth, and the fierce grace of owning our power. Welcome to the Mesponsible Podcast.
So, Wendy, here we are doing our very first podcast of Mesponsible. And I know I'm so proud of us, and so much work has gone into just making this happen, right? Like conceptualizing, dreaming, like getting clear on our mission, who we're talking to, why we're talking to them, and then showing up and actually doing it. So I just want to start off with celebrating you and me and how proud I am of us for just making this happen, and then wishing, that our message is heard by the people who are listening to this.
I agree. This is an important message because this is our journey. This is personal responsibility is what transformed our lives completely.
Yeah, that helped us manifest our dream lives.
Dream lives, like ones where I have to pinch myself and see if this is actually real, because the better it gets, the better it gets. And I never would have imagined how simple, easy, happy, peaceful my life could be, and without having to try so hard all the time.
Mm, yes. And knowing like so much of what we're trying to say here and who we're trying to speak to is the us from many years ago, like our past selves. And if our past selves could just know that it could be easy and that we actually had the power all along to create our dream life, that's why we're
Right.
here.
I love it.
Yeah, beautiful.
Thank you for being on this journey with me. I am full of appreciation, full of celebration, and full of excitement for what might come next. Like, what are we going to do? So, today we wanted to talk about what radical personal responsibility is to us. Maybe share a story or two. And I think we want to read our Mesponsible Manifesto because it so
Yeah.
beautifully states what our passion is for this time together and what we really want to like capture.
Yes. Yeah, let it speak for us. So if you'll start, then I'll just take over like halfway through. Let's do that.
Sounds good. So the Mesponsible Manifesto, a podcast born from radical personal responsibility, real talk, and remembering who we are. We are two women who chose to stop waiting. We've lived the life of trying to make it work, of giving, hiding, shrinking, pleasing. We've been the Betty and Wendy, the Wendy and Betty, who didn't know that we had power, but now we know we do. This podcast is for the women who are still there, and we're here to whisper back through time. You're not broken. You are powerful, and there is another way. We are reclaiming personal power and depopularizing victimhood, not through preaching, but through truth telling, not through perfection, but through presence. And we are not gurus. We are our future selves. We are your future selves reaching back with light. This is not a brand. This is a beacon, a lighthouse for the versions of us who needed practical, soul-fueled tools, but kept asking, but how?
Our message is rooted in radical personal responsibility. It is fertilized by tears, laughter, mistakes, healing, and evolution. It is watered by loyalty and sisterhood. It is grown by showing up, even when it's scary. We do not speak to the masses. We speak to the you that we once were. The you who is just trying to keep it together. The you who secretly wonders if there's more. The you who craves permission to let it be messy, real, and yours. We are Mesponsible. This is a co-creation, a time capsule, a declaration. We are not perfect. We are powerful. And we are here because something in our future just won't let us let go.
Oh,
Woo!
good. It's so good.
It's so good. When you hear that, what comes up for you? I can feel the emotion already.
Mhm. I think what comes up for me the most is that I spent most of my life waiting and hoping someone would see me and understand me and accept me and celebrate me and
And save me.
yeah, and save me. Yeah. I was waiting for someone to show up. And the person I needed to show up was actually me.
Drop the mic. But we didn't know what we didn't know.
No.
We didn't know that we were the power that we needed to fix our entire situation to make it better.
What comes up for you, Betty, when you hear
Mm,
this manifesto?
hope. Like it's a time travel, backward looking hope. We're trying to send back through time to that younger version of ourselves and to the women listening who are that younger version of ourselves right now, the hope that you have everything inside to change. And it's not a hope of this is going to be butterflies and Christmas. It's a long journey and there's a lot of traveling through the shadows to get there. But if you're willing to trust yourself, if you're willing to um, look inside for your answers, then there's so much possibility. Like you said, I have to pinch myself. It's too good. Like we can't even articulate how beautiful life can get when you realize how powerful you are and you take responsibility for the situation that you're currently in.
Yeah. And it's so hard because I didn't know then. And so, like, how do I help my previous version to really know how good it can be? How do I help her to just take the first step? And you don't have to jump all the way from, trying hard and wanting to fix everything outside of you to all of a sudden completely doing it all for yourself. But it just starts with tiny little things. And it's not just like bubble baths and massages and listening to a guided meditation on YouTube. It's not just that. There's other parts, and yet it's so hard to explain because
Yeah.
it's so individual.
Yes. And it seems so um like a mountain that we're trying to climb. It just seems like such a big responsibility. And when you're stuck in that place of victimhood and powerlessness, then it's hard to grasp that we actually can change and that we can change our situation. And so preparing for this, I started to think, like, what is it that I want you to understand? Like, what is it that where do I want to start to guide people? And a few different things came up for me. And I think that if we take one step at a time, if we just start to slowly unravel what you and I have been unraveling for the last 8 years, right? Like this has been a decade's worth of journey at least to
Yes.
get to where we are now. And if we just start working backwards of where did we start? And some of the things that came up for me was learning that our internal state is a reflection of our external state. Like what's going on inside is what's going to show up outside. And I started playing with that. And it started for me with the power of self-awareness, like actually understanding, like, what are my thoughts? What are my emotions? What are my actions? And being able to identify those areas where we can grow and where we can change. And then there's empowerment through accountability, like, where do we start to hold ourselves accountable?
Yeah. And what does that even mean to hold oneself accountable?
Yeah. And then slowly we started to build resilience.
Yeah.
And from there, we just start to improve all these different areas.
You are so good at having perfect stories,
Mm.
illustrating and helping us to understand something. Do you have a story that comes up from your previous version that you associate to this process of, that increasing awareness to the accountability to like,
Nope. I think this is, I'm going to turn it right back to you on
yeah.
self-awareness because I learned that from you.
Mhm.
And so let's just turn that right back over.
Okay, perfect.
So when I started to go through, like, what are some of the things I would like for my past self to know?
Yeah.
I really think the power of self-awareness is something that I learned from you, and I do it so much now that it's hard to remember when I didn't know how to do that. And I love the fact that you told me, or you're the one who really started to get me to tap into self. And I would love for you to just speak into, what does self-awareness mean to you, and how did you become so self-aware? Like, where was the beginning of your self-awareness?
Oh, that's such a good question. Thank you for turning it back. I I think for me, one of the biggest parts of self-awareness was realizing that I had, up until a certain point, allowed everyone else's perspective to define who I thought I was. And in order for who I thought I was, the real me, to be validated, I somehow needed somebody else to see me that way too. And so it ensued in a lot of power struggles, specifically in my previous marriage,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
specifically there, because I thought if he doesn't see the me that I believe I am, and he sees this other person that he's interacting with, then like, am I crazy? I completely didn't trust my own perspective. I completely was outsourcing what I felt, what I thought, what I knew to an outer voice instead of taking a gamble on that, even that still small voice, because it was quiet to start with. It probably still is. I've just learned how to listen for it differently.
mm. Oh my goodness. Yeah, you took me to um, a totally different place than what I was thinking originally. But you're absolutely right. When I was stuck in the place I was trying to get out of, I had no idea what emotions were mine,
Yeah,
what emotions weren't mine.
right,
I had no idea if my feelings were valid or if I was crazy, because I had somebody telling me I was crazy all the time.
right,
And it was exactly like what you're saying, is this little voice that would pop up that's like, no, you are not freaking crazy.
right,
Like, no, you're not crazy. But then there would be days where I was like, God, I'm going insane. Like,
right,
am I really this lunatic? And I didn't know. Like you said, I was looking for like outside validation all the time. Like, am I okay? Am I not okay? Am I crazy? Am I sane? Did this really happen? Did this not really happen? I mean, I didn't have that self-awareness. I had that little voice
right.
that was like, no, girl, keep fighting. Keep fighting. You're not crazy. You're not crazy. So,
Yeah.
how did we shift from that to being more self-aware? How did you shift?
I love this conversation so much. It helps me to remember.
Mhm.
I think at some point in my childhood, in my youth, I maybe through school, I'm not sure, through religion, I believed that there was something inherently wrong with me, and I needed to learn the right way to do everything.
Mm,
And so I was kind of like a copycatter. And I would look at how it's supposed to be, whatever, whoever was telling, whoever was the expert on whatever it was, whether it was raising my kids and how that was supposed to look, whether it was my marriage and what that relationship was supposed to be like, how I was supposed to look, what my house was supposed to be like, all like every detail, my hair, like everything. I would look at magazines to see what am I supposed to look like. Look at the what are the trending colors to know what I should paint my house, to know, and it was so, I don't know what the word is, like exhausting
mm,
because I was always outsourcing what I should do. It was always should and copy, copy, copy. And I would say that when I started being self-aware, like self-aware, it was that little voice I would start listening to instead of the trends. And instead of like, how is a marriage supposed to be? I would be like, what do I want marriage to be like for me?
mhm,
I had followed all of the supposed tos quite closely and turned down the volume on myself so low so that I could hear what everybody else was saying I should do. And then like that that change, that shift came when I just started kind of tuning out. I teach this in my coaching program as turning off the noise and then listening to my body, listening to my gut, listening to my heart, listening to my intuition. And I had to learn how to hear them. Not
mhm.
different from when I had to learn how to listen to everybody else's voices. It's just that it felt really hard because here I am an adult and I'm starting all over again in learning what I want and learning what I need for me. I want to say one more thing, and I know I'm going on, but
No, it's perfect. It's beautiful.
the highly sensitive part was the thing I was criticized for. You are so sensitive. You're too sensitive. And I felt that partly helped me to know that there was something wrong with me because I was so sensitive. And it was true. I am a really sensitive person.
Mhm,
What's also true is when I'm honoring the limitations of my nervous system, which is quite sensitive, it's also true that when I honor my limitations, that those same sensitivities become my superpower rather than my handicap. Those same, like the same sensitivities are actually the thing that help me to create a life that I love instead of copying someone. My sensitivities help me to see what's important for me to have a life that works for my nervous system, for my personality, for who I'm intended, who I'm built to be.
mm. Oh, I thank you so much for sharing all of that. Ah, what I hear in your story is that you finally gave yourself permission. You know, like you looked outside of yourself for so long as what is the right thing, and that you finally gave yourself permission to be Wendy,
Yeah.
to be sensitive, to be highly sensitive, to be somebody who likes purple instead of the trending gray, whatever, like what
Yeah.
do you want? And when I think about everything that you just said, I was trying to ask myself, Do you remember the time that you first started to give yourself permission to have that self-awareness? And what came up for me was I was very much like you, not in the way of trying to conform, because I've always been the rebel who wants to do everything opposite of whatever is
Yes.
whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do the opposite. So
Yeah.
if it was trendy to have whatever, red hair, then I was going to have black hair.
Right.
I was always looking for the opposite. But for me, I am highly empathic. And so what I was doing was I was taking on everybody else's emotions.
Mhm.
And when they were stressed or when they were angry or when they were confused or whatever, I felt it as if it was my confusion, as if it was my anger, as if it was my stress. And I
Yeah.
didn't know how to differentiate between their emotions and my emotions. And then I always had the weight of responsibility of fixing it, right? Like I had
Okay.
to fix their stress. I had to fix their anger. I had to fix it because I didn't want it here. So I felt like I had to be the fixer.
I love this part because we're talking the same word, responsibility.
Hmm.
And yet, and because I would have called myself the responsible one most of my life.
Yes.
But you're right. Like for me, it was responsible for everyone else. And that's what I hear you saying is you were responsible for everyone else. And so part of the permission came as you being allowed to not be responsible for everyone else's happiness and for
Hmm.
their success, but to only be responsible for your own.
Well, yes, but that came years later.
Yeah.
Years later, where I gave myself permission to only worry about me. But that's kind of how my story started, is this feeling of responsibility outside of self. And the thing that I remember when it came to self-awareness is when we were learning to be health coaches,
Mhm.
and we had sessions where we taught our clients how to tap into how we were feeling about our own hunger, about our own satiation.
Mhm.
And it was like we had this scale of, okay, on the hunger scale, are you just a tiny bit hungry and you could chew a piece of gum and be fine? Or are you starving to where now you're about to totally like ravage the kitchen and eat everything? And you started to ask yourself, where am I on that hunger scale? And I remember that like being the first time that I ever even paid attention to what was happening inside of me.
Wow.
Like inside of me, like, am I actually hungry? And then when you were eating, we taught people how to feel how full they were. Like, do you feel full? Instead of just eating until the meal was gone in front of us, like eating until you actually started to feel full. And when you were like 70% full, that's when you should stop because your stomach was actually fuller. But what it did for me is it turned me inward. Like
Right.
for that first time, like I started looking inside of me to be like, oh, and concentrating on just one thing inwardly, like, am I hungry or am I full? Like my feelings around food, that allowed it to not be this grand thing of I need to take all this personal responsibility and I need to know everything about myself. I need to know all my thoughts and my beliefs and everything. I could just hyper focus on, but am I hungry? But am I full? And that was the catalyst. Like that was the beginning of, for me, like this self-awareness. Like, is this even mine?
Right.
Like, am I even hungry? Or is it my kids are hungry? So now I'm thinking about food and I'm trying to figure out like what to eat.
I
Right?
love that story. That is really powerful. How we can be so tuned out of who we are,
Yeah.
even what our body needs, even food, to be so
Mhm.
tuned out.
Yeah. And when you're just in that place of where you and I were, where we're trying to fix everybody else, we're trying to live up to a standard, We have all this outside influence trying to tell us who we should be, what we should feel, how we should act, how we should look, how we should mother, how we should wife, how we should daughter, how we should sister. And we have all of this coming at us, and we have no idea who we are inside. Like being able to focus down on just, am I hungry, is what allowed me to start taking this radical personal responsibility
Yes.
and to tune into self, just to start to become self-aware. And I remember learning from you, like I would watch you like touch your heart, and you would just like tap in, and you'd be like, hold on, like I don't have to answer you right now. Let me tap in first. Like, let me check in first. And then I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I don't know how to do that. And it kind of grew from there. But when you're in that place of, I don't even know who I am or what I'm feeling or what I should or shouldn't be doing, like this is what we want you to get as our listeners is it can start with just starting to be aware of yourself.
It's so good. I have so much swimming through my mind right now. I feel for our listeners, for you, I'm jealous of you that you get to listen to this conversation between Betty and I. I'm excited for you because where we had to go all around to find examples in each other and in our coaching world, etc. You get to just listen to these conversations and over time learn like a new way of doing something, a different perspective. You get to be curious, you get to learn all of these tricks um, with it just naturally by listening to two chicks talk about what they came through. So I'm excited for you because I know that when we know better, we do better. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the way any of us did anything up until now. But when we find something that can work better for us, we tend to do that without even having to try.
Beautiful. And we're here to give you the permission that you're seeking outside of yourself to go on this journey. Like, we're here to say you have permission to feel you.
So, practically speaking, Betty, this is what you and I want to do with each episode we do is to say, like, what is one thing you can do today? And then we have kind of a funny question, but what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you're stressed, you're worried, you're doing all the things. Well, what are you gonna do about it, huh? And here's like one small thing that you can do about it. And the tip that I always go back to with self-awareness and the power of starting to tap into self is just starting to get curious, not from a place of judgment, not from a place of criticism, not from a place of, I have to change being wherever I am right now in me, but just to give yourself permission to be curious um, around your thoughts, around your feelings, around your emotions, around the sensations inside of your body. And one of the tips that I tell my clients all the time is to ask yourself throughout the day, is that an empowering thought or a disempowering thought? And just start to get curious. Like, what am I saying to myself?
I love it. I love
It's
it.
one
I'm going
tip
to
you
double
have.
down on that because I want to keep these simple.
Hmm.
There's so many tips and tricks that we found, but this is really good just to get curious
Hmm.
and to go, am I empowering myself or disempowering myself? And then, so then if you hear yourself being disempowering, what are you going to do about it? Radical personal responsibility means not blaming it on somebody else, not saying, oh, I'm tired, not making excuses, but just going, if I want this to change, if I'm responsible for my life, then what am I going to do about it?
Beautiful. And I think what that does is it gives you choice. So when we're in the habitual way of thinking, we're not giving ourselves choice. When you stop and you get curious and you ask, is that empowering or disempowering? Now you have the choice to choose a more empowering thought. And that's what we're doing about it.
I love it. I love it. Because
Beautiful.
we always have a choice. In fact, you and I were choosing in our past selves
Hmm.
to, we were choosing to struggle. We just didn't know it.
Yeah. And so now we want you to start to know it so that you can have choice. Beautiful. Thank you, Wendy. This was beautiful.
Thank you, Betty.
Congratulations on our episode 1.
We did it.